greetings and welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, trying to be smart podcast covering all things new and classic Trek. Is Uhura here? Y'all are great, but really, is Uhura here hanging out? I am your captain, Mariah Gossett, and with me on the view screen, we have...
Clyde Haynes. I'm going to be not that funny today, I promise. Worf's honor.
And I'm your red shirt and a buffer. Off the touch.
Ouch. And tonight we are joined by a special guest, a friend of the pod, friend from Comic-Con, here to help us out as we tackle 2 entire episodes in one podcast session. Girafe, welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me. I didn't know I had to be funny. I didn't know that.
That's why we say sometimes funny.
Sometimes funny. Okay.
I love sometimes your shirt, funny. Girafe.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll talk about the shirt at the end of the pod. I have some codes for you if you want it. Not too expensive.
That's great. And then we can all be number 1 posters in our hearts. For those listening, Girafe is wearing an Ad Astra per Aspera t-shirt. Yes. And we will get some more information about how we can get those shirts at a discount from Girafe because she's so generous with all of us a little bit later. We are covering episodes 7 and 8 of the 2nd season of Strange New Worlds. Just for logistics purposes, we're going to talk about 207, Those Old Scientists first, and then we will delve into 208, Under the Cloak of War after that. So we'll try to keep it fairly divided. There'll be some mishmashing, I'm sure, but just for continuity's sake. So if you haven't watched 208 yet, you can hang out here for 207 and hang out and chat with us. And then once you've watched 208, you can jump into that as well. Those Old Scientists coming up first is directed by the one and only Jonathan Frakes. It is written by Catherine Lynn and Bill Wolkoff. And just a couple of reminders before we dive into some spicy thoughts and takes. Paul, how can people support the podcast?
Well, first, you can subscribe to our podcast at Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. All links are at StarTrekPod.co. And if you love our content, and we hope you do, for just $2 at Patreon, you could help us out at patreon.com/StarTrekPod.
Indeed. And if you are a member of our Patreon, I just posted a bunch of behind-the-scene videos and some photos of Clyde and I doing the experience on the Comic-Con floor. So you can see those all on the Patreon. Clyde,
I'm a patron.
Oh, thank you, Girafe. I love that we are. I'm also a patron of Strange New Pod. So I was like, I like seeing what everyone's doing. Clyde, how can people interact with us if they are hanging out with us on YouTube?
Write us a note, leave it in the transporter buffer, and we'll get it as long as we've got some space. No, seriously, if you're watching us live on YouTube, just type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital pod in the chat, and we will take a look at your question, your comment, your thought. And in a moment, we're going to get into our overall thoughts of the show. And if you want to share yours, just type capital H, capital F, capital HF in the chat, and we will take a look at your thoughts about the overall episode 7. So I guess we'll do this again when we get to 8.
We're going to do double takes tonight. Double takes. Okay. I think it may be time for us to jump into a portal. Remember me. And it is time for some hot freaks. Hot freaks. Hot freaks. Can't be a hot freaks without a Riker. Clyde, what did you think about this episode?
So we're talking about the crossover episode that Mariah has been waiting weeks and weeks and weeks.
An entire year for.
Yes. And
her whole lifetime for, let's face it.
For a moment like this.
Exactly. There you go. That's right.
You know, and even before I tell you what I thought about the episode, it was a surprise to me because I had to leave Comic-Con a little early. And so I was sitting there thinking, man, I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
Clyde froze. Not us.
He's in a time, a time paradox.
He's getting sucked through the portal.
That's right. No. He needs some.
Remember Clyde.
Yeah. No. Am I there?
You're
back.
We remembered you while you were gone. We promised.
I was excited that I got to actually see it on Saturday like everybody else. So I was super excited. I couldn't wait. I stopped everything I was doing to watch it. And I thought it was hilarious. Like, I thought it was fun. It was very interesting to see Boimler boim like around the Enterprise. You know, it for it to be a Strange New World episode, it felt like it had a very Lower Decks tone. And I enjoyed that. Like, it was great. And I think my favorite thing about the whole thing was they did something that I thought was kind of genius, and they gave us a little inkling of this idea that the Strange New World Spock that we're seeing doesn't feel like the Spock that we know, and they address it almost in a way to say, hey, this little bit is going to lead to how the Spock that you know comes back. And I was like, oh, great. You take that one thing that I was really kind of struggling with and you solved it for me in a fun episode. I can dig that.
Paul, thoughts? Hot Frakes.
Hot Frakes, 30 seconds. I thought it was great. I mean, you were sitting in my living room watching it again. You saw me. It was hilarious. But what I really liked about it was that it was still Strange New Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, it was like I knew I was safe when, you know, Una was talking about the badge and going like, yeah, it's also a comm. Like, but I like the flippy thing. That's the best part. Like, you know, that little bit part. You know, I was like, oh, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna they're gonna do it. They're gonna do both justice. I thought that was great.
Indeed. Giraffe, thoughts?
This was everything I expected. I was a bit scared. He's gone.
Oh, he'll be back. He'll be back.
What did I say? I mean, I was scared of that episode because I don't think I could have had survived it being bad.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I was very anxious, and it delivered on so many levels because it's funny, but it's also very deep. And I needed some black joy in my life, and it gave me that. So perfect episode for me, and one of my favorite. I already watched it like 5 or 6 times, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we watched it together in a big room at Comic-Con, and it was like such a fun episode to watch with a giant group of people. There was laughs, there's cheers. It was a great time. But then as soon as I got into Los Angeles and was staying with Paul, who's a very generous and wonderful friend, even if he doesn't like to to highlight that on the internet. And I got there and it was like 1:00 in the morning already. And Paul puts it on and I was like, I'll just watch the beginning and then I'm going to go to bed. And then I sat and watched the entire thing because it was just so good. My expectations were high. It truly exceeded them. It was like everything I love about Lower Decks and everything I love about Strange New Worlds truly put together in a beautiful combination that, like you said, Giraffe, it had heart and it had depth. I appreciated the speed and the humor and the jokes, but it felt like we were truly still in the world. It didn't feel like we broke the world to make this happen. So I agree all the way around. Probably my favorite episode. I think like we did a top 10, like our top episode recommendations to get people into Star Trek panel, Clyde, Giraffe, and I think I'm going to have to make an addendum because this is on the list now.
Really?
Yeah, but now what goes off the list?
That is the more complicated question.
There we go. That's
I will figure that out sometime. Let's see what the chat has to say about a couple of these hot frakes. Hot frake from Tasako. Boimler and number 1 at the end in the transporter room. I teared up a bit. Agreed. I thought that was a really sweet moment. Kyun funny and heartwarming while still advancing Strange New World story arcs, plus Boimler giving great advice to Pike, 10 out of 10. And from Carmen, I loved episode 7. I know I'll go back and watch it often. It was pure fun. I think pure fun is a great descriptor of this episode. Okay. So the first moment that gave me screams and I was so excited was the animated opening titles. I was obsessed with the amount of, because that's a lot of work to redo the full title sequence. I mean, hats off to the entire animation department that put that together. I don't know what the little worm thing is that sucks on the back of the nacelles, but I'm glad that made an appearance. And I think it truly set the tone that this was going to be a beautiful mashing of these two worlds. We do start out in our animated world, which was like a little bit, it was a surprise. I thought we were fully going to be like completely live action, but I loved starting out in our Lower Decks world. And what did you think of, Mariner's kind of setting this tone of like, oh, I'm still too cool for school. I'm just trying to get on Ransom's good side. But we find out at the end of the episode that she actually was the one who requested this because she thought Boimler would like to see the portal. What do y'all think this episode did for Boimler and Mariner's relationship as friends?
I mean, I think like it's par for the course. I don't think it advanced it any. I think like it's like she's always looking out for him and always trying to, get him the things that will make him happy. Like, I think that's what makes Mariner in the sense that like she's like she's an ensign mama bear. Like because
Yeah.
I mean, like she takes care of her friends, like and she wants everyone to be happy, and and I think that's I think that this is par for the course, and like her losing Boimler, like to the portal, you could see her stakes in that. So I thought it completely within tone, of course.
I will probably disagree just a teeny bit in that I thought it did advance their relationship just a little bit. I think it strengthened it in that we're continuing to see Mariner have this kind of Kirk Spock type of relationship. They're very, very close. And so, yes, it would make sense that when he went into the portal, she was the one who came after him, right? Like we're thinking, oh, this is just a Boimler in Strange New Worlds episode. But no, we get this piece where Mariner comes after him. Makes sense that they would have this journey together. Nothing against Rutherford or Tendi, but that's what it would be. It was, so I thought that it showed us again, even when they're kind of at odds a little bit, even though when they feel like they're very different, it's really they're the dynamic duo. And so I felt like after this episode, I was like, yeah, they're really, really tight. And I think that matters because I feel like all through the last season of Lower Decks, they didn't seem as tight as they were in the season before. And so now I feel like we're returning back to that. I don't know, that just kind of team up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, did we lose Giraffe?
No, I'm back. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah. Okay, great. I agree with everybody. I just wanted to see the conversation between Mariner, Tendi, and Rutherford when when Boimler was like sent off. Let's say that. I think Mariner has just such an arc that is for me a fascinating a character arc because she's always misleading you in some ways. Like she doesn't care, but she does. She wants to be separated, but she is central to her group of friends, and she's definitely becoming the mom, but she doesn't want to be the mom. Mm-hmm. And I identify deep that that position in her friends group. And she cares for everybody, and she does care for Boimler because I think she sees in Boimler something that she doesn't have, and she sees in him something, and she sees in herself something that he doesn't have. So yeah, Spock and Kirk kind of they have like this very healthy balance. About the opening credits, I think we didn't have like different opening credits since Enterprise and the Mirrorverse one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think in Discovery we had the Mirrorverse credits, and then Discovery has changed their opening credit sequence every season, and so did Picard.
For one episode, no, right?
But for one-off episodes, I think it's only been mirror episodes.
Mirror episodes, yeah. So that's a good like new tradition. I hope they're gonna do more.
Yeah, I like the little Easter eggs. It was sort of like in during Picard when we have the opening Star Trek swoosh, universe swoosh, and like you would see like the strike kind of hanging out, and then like the ship would change, and eventually it was the Enterprise at the end. I enjoy when you can see the like artists of the show having fun with things like that. I did want to dive into we kind of have Boimler dealing with him not wanting to spoil the future, but is also meeting all of his idols. I think Boimler was a really great audience surrogate for a lot of us in this episode if we were meeting all of these people. But I thought he did an interesting job of kind of being the voice of the future on the bridge, right? Because there are, and like we'll get into it in 208, but there are some deep-seated kind of stereotypes that the Federation has about different aliens, right, at this point, because like Boimler says, like the aliens are still aliens at this point. It's still very new. The exploration is still happening. But I liked seeing him kind of come into his own and knowing the future and knowing what is correct and like what is actually true about all of these different species and he's like challenging his heroes on the bridge in order to make sure that happens. So I wanted to, what did y'all think of how Boimler and Pike and kind of the Boimler treading that line of like, I'm telling you the future, but not telling you the future. He was not very good at not telling the future. No one in this episode was.
Yeah, that was my first thought, was he was not very good at kind of towing the line, especially compared to like La'an, who just experienced like the same thing and who was excellent at like kind of keeping, right, very serious episode where we're focused on not messing up the timeline, fixing the timeline. And Boimler's like every 5 seconds, he's like, oops, I wasn't supposed to say that.
Well, La'an's like the bodyguard, and like, rule number 3, never fall in love.
Yeah.
It's like, what is happening here?
Very that.
But overall, I thought it was again, I thought it was fun, right? Like this was a great episode because I felt like it, I love what you said a minute ago, Mariah, about being the surrogate for us. It was, and it didn't take itself so seriously, which when we get into episode 8, which was very serious.
What?
And I have no idea what you're talking about.
like I was like, this is a sort of funny podcast. Man, I laughed my ass off on 8.
Okay.
Lord.
But I thought this was kind of fun. Like I was like, yeah, this is what you would expect to happen if one of us if we suddenly went back in time and saw your like heroes. You it's hard to to not kind of geek out over these people. So I thought it was good.
Yeah, I also shouts to, I watched the Ready Room episode, and the Riker maneuver that Boimler pulls was improvised. And just shouts to Jack Quaid and Tawny Newsome for being so freaking funny. And they talked a lot about how they were like, this was our chance to really show like our skills as live action actors to the Trek family. So they just went all out. They were like, we gave them so much. They were like, we felt kind of bad for the editors, but not really, because they gave them so many options for everything. And I feel like that came through. You got to see a lot of them being able to play. And I thought the Boimler v Spock pairing was really smart. And then I was like, we have to talk about Mariner and Uhura and just how like lovely that was, that there is someone who they're kind of, it's funny because Mariner and Uhura at this point are kind of the same actual levels in their careers, right? But Mariner has been in Starfleet probably technically longer than Uhura at this point.
I mean, she's a Starfleet kid. She literally grew up in Starfleet, right?
She grew up in Starfleet. She's been doing all of this and like has this perspective of like, oh, I know how to use the rules to still have fun, and I'm going to teach them to you. And I loved that moment so much.
But doesn't Mariner outrank Uhura at this point? Because Uhura is an ensign. I thought Mariner.
They're both ensigns.
They're both ensigns, but Mariner has been, I think,
demoted several times.
Yes, and I think is like almost they were talking about this on the Ready Room, trying to do. They haven't established like the actual ages of Mariner and Boimler, so they can't say for sure. But like Celia is playing 22-year-old Uhura, so it's like.
And they said they're having a quarter life crisis, so they're like
they're in their 30s,
right?
Yeah. I think they're closer to their 30s. Yeah.
What's the future? So they made it in the 50s.
They could look just that good. The face creams have gotten really great.
That's right.
But I loved that moment, and I loved them going to the bar and showing that, you know, having fun can also still lead to moments of genius, right?
And that's where I really like what the Lower Deckers have done, and where I think the depth of the episode comes through is that we're so used to seeing them in their time where they're like kids and they're here for the fun, they're here for the ride. But once you take them and you put them 120 years in the past, they are the one with the heart, and they are the one with the social progress. And the fact that these two are the only one caring about the colonists and the grain and all these people that are going to like be relocated or die, and like it's these two ensigns who are like, we need to do something, when literally the bridge crew is not talking about it. They totally forgot about it. And I think that's what I really like in the episode. Like, I laughed at all the jokes because, you know, I like the jokes, but it's that vision that future, even if the future, it's a future of Pike, right? Even deeper in the future, society keeps progressing and they keep being more open-minded. When he says like about the Orions, like Pike was ready to blow up the Orion ship in a second. He would have killed everybody on board and not even blink. And I do think that I criticized Strange New World a lot for these choices before, like, oh, why don't they care about the Illyrians? Why don't they do this? And then I realized that they are mimicking a lot of like the bad choices of the 60s, which I'm critic about, let's say. And having the Lower Deckers here is also showing how much Star Trek has grown. Like, they bring that social questions that we see in DS9, the care for the crew that we see in Voyager, and we see that they grew up in a different era while, you know, having different priorities compared to the crew of the Enterprise. And they're still like deeply in love with them. They're still like amazed by these guys. But when I see Pike and when I see Boimler, I'm like, Boimler is right. Be like Boimler. For real. Or like Uhura and Mariner. I'm like, Mariner is right. Be like Mariner. Like, she's a good, bad influence, right? But she's right, ultimately, you know?
Yeah, and I think that that's also what I really enjoyed about this episode was like, it wasn't just like our lower decks crew learning lessons about like being thankful for where they are and knowing that like, you know, you can admire the past, but you don't have to be stuck in the past in order to grow. And like, yes, they're your heroes, but you get to be your own person, right? Is like the lesson for our lower deckers. But they are also instilling, I think, a lot of lessons to our entire Enterprise crew here, and letting them know like, hey, like we exist because you did all of these things, but we're here to teach you a few things that will make all of this a lot easier. And I love that it's canon that lower deckers propelled all of these people to these places.
Nice.
I also enjoyed getting to see more Ortega's in this episode and getting to see a bit of her fun side. I know there's been a big call for more Ortegas on the internet, and we still haven't quite gotten like a full focused episode. Sorry, my next note is about Pike's birthday. But I really enjoyed seeing kind of like more personality. So we get like Chapel and Ortega's, you know, kind of playing with Boimler in the way that it feels like the lower decks crew when they're all hanging out at their little bar afterwards, right? Like that felt like a lower deck scene to me, but with our characters. And then we also then get Ortega's and Uhura hanging out with Mariner. And so we get these nice little groupings at the bar that lead to some fun shenanigans.
Yeah, no, like it's nice to see that throughout all of Starfleet, it's always okay to bully Boimler.
We all have that friend, okay?
That's right.
Let's be honest.
And apparently it's okay. Like there's not anyone like do better. Like it's a long tradition of Boimler violence.
What did you think of the scene between Boimler and Chapel when Boimler kind of like bursts her bubble that she is not important enough to be in any of Spock's biographies?
I mean, I think that's actually like one of the coolest things where like, you know, because it kind of sets a ticking clock for a Strange New World as far as their relationship. And like, you know, it's not going to work out. And there's something really beautiful and tragic about being in a relationship that you know isn't going to work out.
Is it? How do you handle that though? Right? Like if you're in a relationship, and you got to understand they're newly in a relationship, which is what sucks, right? Like that new point where you're like, oh man, I just like being around you, and I'm still discovering who you are, and all of your crazy things aren't really crazy, they're cute right now. That's like the really cool, fun, easy part. And so in the middle of that is someone goes, hey, by the way, this is not gonna last. Like it feels a little heartbreaking. Like, what do you do at that point? Like, do you be like, well, I'm just gonna have fun while I can, or do you be like, well, if I know it's doomed, do I get off this ride now?
Well, like, things aren't beautiful because they last. Oh, Avengers 2, baby.
I mean, go ahead.
I have a lot of problem with like this Spock Chapel relationship, not because it's Spock Chapel, but because it's been handled in such a boring way, in my opinion. Like it just, why is she crying so much for a guy? Like, cry about like your lost crewmates, about the colonies that are dying, I don't know, about not being able to save somebody in the med bay. Like, I'm here for emotions, but she's been constantly tearing up for that guy that she's been pursuing, basically. Like, it's like, why did you get together? Oh, because she was super persistent. and I wanted to try. So, and in the end, when like Boimler says that, you have two options, right? Somebody tells me that first of all, I'm not gonna start crying in an elevator in front of that guy. That's not what I'm gonna do. Because he's an ensign that like popped up literally from nowhere. And
because we don't cry in front of people who are of lower rank. That's what we do.
First of all, Paul, you're right.
There's no crying, and there's no crying in Star Trek.
Biography.
I need to check
like you can read a biography of a guy that lived like 120 years in the past. Does that mean you know him? No. Like, why is she taking this so seriously? Why is she like, oh my God, that means we're not gonna be together? Girl, like, you have a life, you have friends. There's so many things happening around you like, right now. Like, chill, like, breathe. Like, it's gonna be fine, you know? Like, it's not Boimler who's deciding whatever the hell is going on with the relationship.
Spock is Vulcan and lives far longer than you, so it's like, even if your relationship is like a few years, which is significant in a human life, it could be, that's like literally like going out on a date in the timeline of Vulcan.
Do you think I'm gonna write all my exes in my autobiography? Like, come on. Like, no, there are like some people I'm like, it was fun, it was great, I have no beef with you, but I don't think the world needs to know. And the fact that she would be mad at this, that I'm not important enough. Like, come on.
Well, I mean, also, if you've seen
like 10 days, please.
Well, if you've seen any of the timey-wimey stuff, what do we know, right? The future is not set, right? So that little information is like, oh, okay, I need to step up my game a little bit if I want this to really last. You still have the power to do that. Now, you might unravel the fabric of time in so doing so, but it's your choice. And Boimler's the one who told you what was going to happen, so that's all.
Okay, imagine taking relationship advice from freaking Boimler of all people.
Right? I'm gonna do a little justice for Chapel here, because, like, she's you see her life, and she's not had a lot of luck in like relationships, right? Like she chooses the wrong person, partly because of her, partly because of them, blah, blah, blah. And Spock is the person that she finds stable. She's not just stable, but like someone she's attracted to, and someone that she really sees the things that she wants. And I can see how, like, someone being given the fact, like, oh, you mean nothing to him in the cosmic scope of time. Like, that's going to suck. That's going to suck to hear.
It's going to suck.
That's if you're 21.
But
doesn't suck if you're 40.
You're speaking as a person who's like really healthy, but Chapel isn't healthy.
Here's my
she
thing.
Got war trauma.
My other thing,
she got war trauma.
I also wouldn't be mad if they broke up, because here's my thing. I think Chapel and Mbenga have way better chemistry on screen.
And Agreed.
And that with their
so much.
To me, that would be a much more fulfilling, like if we have to have the like woman relationship arc as her primary storyline, like them being in the war together and having all of this past and fighting, like to me, that is like prime. So like, and you can't tell me after that, like y'all talked about the chemistry after that first episode where they're staring at each other. And at first I didn't see it, but now I see it. I see it. I am now shipping Mbenga and Chapel. And Chapel, whatever you want to call it.
Wait, let's hold on. Do you see the chemistry between Chapel and Mbenga? Or are you thinking about episode 8 when he was in that sonic shower? And are you just thinking about that kind of chemistry?
There was a lot of Mbenga skin in episode 8. There's a lot of skin.
Okay,
listen, I picked up a couple dumbbells and was like, I need to get my workout on.
That's right.
Episode.
We'll get to all of our Mbenga talk for that episode later. I gotta get like a fan before we're ready for that episode. I did want to jump into the Pike birthday situation. So Boimler lets it spill that it's like a holiday into the future. I thought it was funny watching two people or two groups. You know, you have Paul, you've lost video. I don't know what happened to you, but we can still hear you. So Boimler lets it slip. And so you kind of have Pike trying not to reveal his future that he knows is his future to Mariner and Boimler. But obviously Mariner and Boimler also know that future, but they both are just playing this like really funny standoff game of like, we can't tell you and I can't tell you. So we're going to talk about this in a big roundabout way. But I will say the Pike dad speech, I felt like it was a really lovely moment to get to know more about Pike, but wasn't that also the same speech that Kirk gave in Kelvinverse about like him now being older than his dad?
Oh yeah, it's the same one in Beyond. Beyond,
yes. Yeah, and Beyond. So I mean, I guess we love a captain with some daddy issues, but how did you feel about Pike's sort of like arc to eventually coming around to his party?
I mean, it's something, and maybe I have daddy issues, but it's something that I think about a lot, right? Like you get to that point where you think you start to compare yourself to the generation before you, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's common to go, hey, here's where I'm at when this happened. I think likewise, I love the idea of Boimler going, hey man, I see where you're going. You and I both know you're not gonna like, you know how the time is ticking on when you're done. Allow people to be with you when you're here instead of you holding up in some corner, meditating and wallowing in self-pity. I thought it was brilliant. And I was like, yeah, man, like don't just sit up there and huddle by yourself. Allow people to be around you. So I thought it was great. Like I thought that was one of the best really moments of the season for me.
I'm going to do the Clyde and go like, I slightly disagree. And like, I guess for one, like, I kind of feel that, Pike, for all of it, like, he knows when he's gonna, and I suppose he's been a really good captain as far as like connecting with his crew. He's always having people over for dinner. Like, Picard never invited people over dinner.
Not even for wine.
Not even for not once. I don't remember. Like, I remember, Cisco did better, but like, and so like on a day where he's gonna like commemorate his dad for a little bit just to process stuff. Like, I think that's a totally fine thing. I understand why he let go of it, but like, I don't know if I really like. I feel like I had bad relationships with my dad. I feel like that's an easy trope to draw upon, and there's no evidence of that in any of the things we've seen. So I feel like that's a little easy or convenient.
Yeah, I wish it was more of like maybe we'll get more about his dad at some point, but it was like, to me, they were trying to draw that parallel between like he looked up to his dad, and now that he's older than his dad, and he's having to also face like the past and the future, right?
Well, I feel like they already served us that thing with the Kirk's brother, like like an episode ago, 2 episodes ago, when was it? Yeah, and I'm like, okay, and that came like a little bit out of the left field. Like I was like, we never talked about this before. Why is it coming out now? Like it was like, let's add some cream of trauma on top of the cake of trauma, and maybe a little bit more trauma. Like it just. At this point, I'm just like, he cannot like his birthday for many reasons. But I really liked what Boimler said to him, even if I deeply disagree, because at the end of the day, dude, it's your birthday. Enjoy your birthday as you want. Like, you imagine having to enjoy your birthday in a way that make other people happy? No. Like, dude.
See, once again, Giraffe, you're just speaking from a super healthy perspective, and I can't really relate to that.
No, okay, but like if I can go a little bit like trauma,
Sure.
like I witnessed my dad dying when I was 19. He just collapsed and died, and I was 19, which means like a very young adult. I was like freshman in college. I mean, yeah, something like this. And it shaped the way I see my life. I'm like, oh, people can just drop and be dead, and it's the end, so I'm gonna make the most out of it. I'm gonna enjoy my life, and I'm gonna live it in everywhere I want. And if I need to die like right now, I'm satisfied with my choices. Like, no regrets, oh, sorry.
Your phone was like, absolutely no regret.
So it's true. And I'm almost at the age my dad when my dad passed. So it is something I'm thinking about, because for me, it's crazy. When I was 19, I was like, that dude is old. And now I'm like, I'm super young. This is messed up. And that makes me want to enjoy my time in a way that makes sense to me. And I do spend time with a lot of people. Mariah can attest. And I'm always left and right. But in the end, the way you're going to process the passing of time is very personal and is very intimate also. It's like something you have a deep relationship with. Like how you see your time and how you see your life is unique to yourself. So having an ensign telling me, yeah, but people like really care for you and so on, I'd be like, yeah, sure. But the difference that I don't know that I'm gonna end up in the beep beep chair, so I don't have a time frame. I don't have a time frame telling me that date you're gonna end up. How does she does it?
Yeah,
So yeah, I think that's the difference with Pike. He knows he has an expiration date that is very precise for him. When I hope mine is very far away, and very. I hope it's gonna be in the newspaper. That's all I want, like something kind of like crazy,
We can make sure that happens.
Cool, but in a cool way, in a cool way. Yeah, in a positive way.
The beep beep chair, by the way, was an improvised line.
Oh my goodness!
I saw that.
So was apparently all of the gushing over how hot young Spock was, but she said she got full permission from Ethan Peck before she went down that rabbit hole, which I appreciate. Asking, hey, I'm going to talk about how hot you are. Are you okay with that?
I'm going to literally harass you on screen.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Sorry. Oh yeah, and I have to say that I've been in the same room than Ethan Peck, and it's very hard to not ask him, like, do you know how hot you are? Like, do you realize, like, how do you live your life? Like, I need to know, because like this is mind-boggling to me. Like right now, I'm like, this, how, why? So I feel Tony Newsom.
Our lower decks crew does eventually get back through the portal, but not before we get the most amazing scientific exploration in the lab between Spock and Boimler, where we get the classic Boimler scream. I also really enjoyed, I thought it was like such a smart move to have Boimler again be that kind of audience surrogate. You get so many people who are just like, I don't know if this is my Spock. Y'all kind of touched upon this earlier. It was like, he's different than I remember. Blah, blah, blah. And Boimler, whenever that like horror cut and like music started, whenever Spock smiled, I thought was absolutely hysterical. And And then Spock even acknowledging, he's like, these are my experiments into like my human emotions. And he's like, I'm trying to figure out how I feel about all of these things. I really appreciated all of the Boimler Spockness going on. And let's just say the fan fiction already very intense. Y'all are fast. Y'all are very fast.
We always can count on like the fandom. That's what I really appreciate. I appreciate how fast Tarina and Sarah fanfic just popped into reality. I'm just like, wow, you people have like too much time. I really like that.
But what did y'all think? I wanted to talk more about just the embodiment that Tawny Newsome and Jack Quaid did of their animated characters. Like that has to be it's like they voiced them, right? So there are all the things and the quirks that they kind of know from that. But then like Jack Quaid talked a lot about having to watch like a lot of the episodes and really study the Boimlerisms to get them. And you can really tell, I mean, there's like the walk and some of the big things, that we all saw, like the scream and stuff. But even the way like Mariner sat on the cushion and then when she stands with her arms behind her back, it was like you could fully see them being these characters.
Yeah, and there was some very little subtle things like not Mariner, but Boimler does this thing where he like adjusts his shirt, like his jacket, in a very kind of Picard way. And I noticed when Jack Quaid did it, I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely very Boimler. There are these very subtle things that I thought lended to the credibility, and I think it's interesting because both Jack Quaid and Tawny Newsome, Jack Quaid more than anyone else doesn't look that different from Boimler in real life, right? And so it made sense that you kind of put him through. Tawny's a little bit different, but I thought like I don't know if it was super believable or I just wanted to believe it. But I thought they did a really great job of embodying these characters. Like there wasn't something that felt like, no, that doesn't look like it. Like often if you've ever read a book before you've watched the movie or the TV adaptation and you're like, oh, that's not how I pictured it. It didn't throw me like that. I was like, yeah, I'm here for it.
I think the voice is helping a lot because I know their voice and it's their voice. So I'm just like, sure, like I will buy everything they sell, to be honest, every single thing. And I thought that the direction also of Jonathan Frakes was just incredible. Like the creepy smile of Spock, to come back to that question. I'm really happy we got another perspective on this because everybody just knows him and everybody's like going with it, and I found that creepy. I've been finding that creepy for several episodes, and I'm like, thank you, Boimler, thank you. I think that I like the way they did it, and for me, it's seeing yet again another generation move. When you see like older people, how they will like talk and move, and younger generation, you see a different way of just occupying the space and moving your body. And I just identify their weird way of moving in the way that they come from the future. They just don't move the same way that
what's funny to go on that is like they make a call out to that where they not the movement, but like it's weird, like everything's so like quiet and like everyone talks so slow here.
If you send back in the 1900s, like early 1900s, the way you sit, the way you talk, the way you move your body is gonna like look weird for real. So I just like that. For me, it was just, they're kids from like another era, and I liked recognizing that it's still movement that a body can make, even if it's animation.
Yeah, that's true. I wanted to go to Una's sort of little journey here with this crew. The pinup, it's a poster you pin up moment was very funny. Also, I can feel the like terror and respect in the performances of Boimler and Mariner over Rebecca Romijn's Una, because that has to be like, I mean, she's a legend, right? It's like, not only is this character a legend, but you're now like acting with someone who's been in this industry for so long, and it's been like tons of characters that you've grown up with. So I felt like that was very palpable, but I loved getting to finally get to that end, and I really felt that like full emotional arc for Una, and I thought it was a really great way to tie it back to that episode.
Totes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I like all these different yes.
I can expand on it, but I'm gonna let Clyde go so I can respectfully little bit disagree.
No. I mean, I'm with you. I don't disagree at all. I thought, when we talk about like what it's like to go back in time and meet your heroes. Like when I was thinking about it, like this is actually a bit of a different take. Usually when we see people go back in time, they're not meeting either. We get the whole, you go through a portal to Mirrorverse, or you're trying to right some wrong or something like that. But this is like, no, your timeline. They know that you're from the future, so you don't have to hide it. And you're looking at them, and it's like you're in awe of them. These are the stories that you've heard. And so to be able to capture this, like, oh my goodness, it would be, especially because you've got these younger lower deckers, right? We're not talking about Kirk and Spock going back and meeting someone, or if we were talking about, Geordi and Data going back in time and meeting, Spock and Scotty. Like, it's not like that, because that's kind of like we're on the same level. These are like junior, like, crew members meeting the goats, right? The greatest of all time. So the way you look up at a character like Una, who's like literally the original number one, right? And going, oh my goodness, like you're the, and then you think about like, this is the poster, like this is the legend. Like that would be intimidating. And I think they carried that well. I also like the subtleness of that pinup comment, because that was very subtle of how times have changed, right?
Yeah.
Whereas what pinup meant, in kind of the Pike era time versus what pinup means in this future, right? Where we've gotten rid of a lot of racism, sexism, and things like that, and post-war, and like we're just supposed to be better now. Like, I thought that was a great little head nod, and so I was all for all of that. I thought it was really done well.
Listen, I met Nichelle Nichols, and I was absolutely stupid for 15 full minutes. Because what do you say to somebody that you have on a poster everywhere in your room all the time for like decades? You can't say anything.
You just go like, do you know where the bathroom is? Oh, and then
okay,
you go,
I have another story about bathroom. Give me a second. So I was like, I don't even know how to convey, what it means to me and how fundamental it was to me becoming the Black woman I am. How much she's important in my life. You can't convey that. Like, I was 1,000% Boimler. and I went because that's the other thing, is like, for Boimler, like, she has heard everything. She's a legend. He doesn't imagine that she is in this self-doubt where she doesn't know her place and she feels that she shouldn't be here, or that nobody wants her here. For him, she is everything. And bathroom, I was in the bathroom in LA, and I washed my hand next to Dr. Mae Jemison, and I almost passed out because I was like, oh my God, this is Dr. Mae Jemison. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And then I stop, and I'm like looking at her, and I'm like, I'm very sorry to like disturb you right now, but you're Mae Jemison. She's like, yes. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, no, I mean, my head was going like, crazy. And I just said, hi. And she was like, hi. And she left, and I was like, so yeah, that happened. But yeah, it just, yeah, it just Boimler is so true here. And again, very good. I don't even have a dog. I don't know if you hear that, but that's not my dog. This gobsmack attitude is just on point. And I live the exact same thing. So kudos to Jonathan Frakes again.
So Boimler is your Star Trek character. That's your inner Star Trek.
No, I'm a 1,000% Mariner. I have to say that after the episode, everybody was texting me and telling me when I saw the scene with Mariner and Uhura, just her sitting and looking at her, I was like, "That's you," and I was like, "Yeah, I feel it."
I was going to say, as soon as Mariner comes through and is like, is Uhura here? I was like, oh, did Girafe write these lines? Like,
you guys are great. I love you all, but is Uhura here?
Yeah, exactly. I loved the little at the end when Ransom's like, oh, the second, or the hottest number one in the fleet ever, because that's like, if you don't know, Jerry O'Connell plays Ransom, who is married to Rebecca Romaine. So fun little BTS. And then I wanted to talk about, I saw a lot of people reacting to all the love for Enterprise in this episode. And I thought it was such a smart way for them to show that even though these are the characters for so many of us that are those like icons and heroes, like these characters also have other icons and heroes, and like how important that sort of like chain of legacy continues, which I thought was a smart way to even integrate into the ship and like the legacy and the star power of the ship. I was like, oh, you guys are really doing it. I see these. This is
Justice
great.
Justice for Mayweather.
Justice for
Mayweather should have been captain of the NX-01. I will die on that hill.
So this is a moment where our Patreons are waiting for me to say something about Enterprise, and they're just going to go nuts. So here's what I'll say. I loved it. And I'm actually a big Mayweather fan. And I thought that was one of the best inclusions of Enterprise in another Star Trek series that I've ever seen. I thought it was authentic. I thought it was true. And I loved it. Like, I'm all the way here for it. So yeah, no, I no Enterprise bashing from me this week.
He qualified it this week.
It's been a long road for us to get here.
Oh my god!
I had to. It was there.
No.
But yeah, I mean, all in all, I really love this episode. I think, like I said at the top, it did so much that I love about Trek, which is it's teaching you a lesson, but you don't know you're getting taught a lesson, and it's entertaining and it was fun. Yeah, and just like having Frakes there, who when they were talking about it on the Ready Room, they're like, oh yeah, Frakes, who's been in every single thing of Star Trek since TNG aired, including Lower Decks. It's someone who has that like deep knowledge, and it felt like fans making stuff for Trek for fans as well, but it wasn't fan service. Does that make sense? Like, in that way? I thought it was smart, and shouts to Mike McMahon, who I think is doing some of the best Trek we currently have with Lower Decks, and I feel like you could feel it here as well.
He definitely had like the most love of Star Trek. You could tell that he loves Star Trek, like the universe, like as opposed to like, oh, I love my show, but he
exactly
loves it all.
Yeah,
you know what I'd like to see? The second season of Prodigy.
That as well. Apparently there's things happening. You can go to the link down below in the show notes if you would like to sign the
Justice for Prodigy.
The Justice for Prodigy. Why have I totally blanked on the word for this thing that you put signatures on? Petition. Oh my god, my brain just fully shut down, y'all.
I mean, when the foreigner is helping you with vocabulary, it's time to get to sleep.
It's been a long week, y'all, and I am working all weekend, so it's gonna be a good time. Okay. Anything else you all want to say about 207, these old scientists?
Like, I was surprised that they decided to go with the as far as like time travel species, like the Nausicaans. It was just weird. Like, you're like, oh, but then they go like, oh, we translated it. It said this is a time portal. That's great. That's totally Nausicaan.
Yeah.
You know, the Nausicaan reference to me was hilarious because there is a moment, it's like Nausicaans, like they really are bad at pool, but they seem compelled to gamble on it or something like that.
It's great. It's great.
That's hilarious.
Dumb jot.
That is.
Dumb
Yeah.
jot.
Yes.
That's right.
Dumb jot. For me, this episode was really incredible, and it makes the second season very questionable for me because there's been so many ups and downs, and I'm very worried for how many episodes are left? 2, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we're talking 208. 209 is next week where we have a musical and then we have a finale.
Yeah, I look forward to just rewatching this series, this season from like 1 to 10 because there's been a lot of, in French we say there's been things to drinks and there are things to eat. It's just very different from episode to episode. So yeah, I'm glad they did it well.
Yeah, as we transition, I had this thought earlier where I was confused and I was thinking like, oh man, they gave us 2 episodes inside a week. So we've got 7 and 8 and we've only got a couple episodes remaining. I feel like there's a lot left on the table in terms of like we've got the Klingons as an enemy, as kind of whatever, and they keep teasing us about the Gorn, and yet there's not enough time to really unpack that, right? Like, you know, we're, I guess, dealing with Discovery and even Prodigy, or not Prodigy, but Picard, we're used to having a big bad throughout the season, and we haven't really gotten one.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of like, it's almost like I'm watching my time and going, you got some extra episodes you haven't told us about? Like, there's a lot. Feels like there's still a lot left in this season.
I agree. I wish I had a full week to digest before we jumped into this next week's episode because it was a lot. But the other thing I thought was interesting that Jonathan Frakes talked about was apparently when the directors are given an episode, they are told it is theirs to use like it's a movie. And so I think that has been really interesting. And I wonder if that was the same brief given in season 1, because while there were definitely genre shifts in season 1, I felt like this season has been some of the harder, you know, it's like when you're driving like an old manual car, some of the shifts between episodes. And I'm someone who loves genre episodes. I love when we get to either get really campy or we dive into horror, you know, thrillers and all of those things. I just wonder.
Ready for a musical?
I mean, I love musicals, TBD, what I'll feel about this, but they've got an incredible cast for this. So I was like, I like musicals, but
you want to live in hope.
I will live in hope for the musical episode. But the fact that this week, and we'll dive into our hot breaks here in a second of 208, that this episode is between our crossover comedy and a musical is wild to me. And so I wonder if there would have been a way to structure some of these so that it doesn't feel like such a, like now I'm like, oh, now we're really shifting back, you know, like, I mean, I don't know tonally what the music, I mean, I've seen some really dark and horrific musicals, so maybe we're going that way. That would be quite a twist. But
Sweeney Todd action.
Yeah, I love Sweeney Todd. I'm a big into the woods. You know, you can get dark with some of these themes. So we'll see. Okay. Any other thoughts before we switch gears here?
I'll just say I too love a musical, but I'm a little lost at the tonal shifts overall. One thing I'm like, okay, well, I'm here for it, but I have no idea what to expect next. And I think I've just begun saying, hey, okay, I'm going to look at each one of these episodes individually and not try and
being kicked out again.
Yeah.
What?
No, I don't know what happened. I've been kicked out.
No, you're here.
Oh.
We can hear you and see you.
We see you. Yep.
Oh, okay.
You're still
What
here.
were we seeing? Okay.
Okay, so the Under the Cloak of War is directed by Jeffrey Bird. It was written by Davy Perez. And I think it is time for us to dive into the next segment of... It's time for some more hot frakes. Clyde, what did you think about this episode?
This one was tricky for me because this one was about war, PTSD, and so the tonal shift, at least for me, from campy comedy crossover to something like this was like it felt like I almost got whiplash. Like, whoa, okay, now I'm dealing with this, and I'm going, look, I've never served in the military. I don't know what it's like to serve and come back and be changed. So I want to be very careful about how I approach this. I want to approach it respectfully. I thought overall it was a really insightful episode. I'm not quite sure. I'm still processing the end a little bit and the choices that they made from a story standpoint. Like I was all for it up until about the last maybe 10, 15 minutes. So all in all, I thought it was, look, I really wanted some backstory on Chapel and Mbanga in the war. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly happened at the end and where we're going with that.
Yeah. Paul, thoughts?
It was not my favorite episode, but I think it might be artistically the best episode of the season.
Wow.
Like I think from a writing standpoint and from a character standpoint, I think it did a lot of things that was really, I wouldn't say new for Trek, but like they did it in a way that was different. Like I said, like, it's like I really respect it. It's better to say it is the episode I respect the most. So that's that, and we'll that's my hot freak. That's 30 seconds.
Yeah. I was like, we'll dig in.
Mm-hmm.
Girafe.
So I feel that episode had everything for me to love it, and I deeply dislike it, and I do not respect it. I am the daughter of 2 field doctors, and I have 2 war nurses in my family who have seen combat and were on the field, including my mother. My dad is a Black man and a doctor who has been on the field and was Doctor Without Borders for many, many years. What that episode did is, I don't want to say criminal, but almost.
Well, we're going to have a lively conversation, Girafe.
I mean, I lived with these people for like all my life. They made me the human I am here. They went to missions way into, like, my dad, I think his last mission, I was like 13 or 14 or something like this. So yeah, I know it's Hollywood, so I don't expect it to be a documentary, right? But the fact that everybody thinks that this is what it is deeply troubling for me and for all the people that do this job, because that is not what it is. And yeah, I know it's entertainment and it's supposed to be fun and it's supposed to be also horrific, but yeah.
We'll talk about it.
We're gonna get into it.
I mean, I think I'm like with Clyde. Like there was a lot about this episode that I was really like enjoying the way they were approaching the themes and how it was going to spark interesting conversations around like xenophobia post-war and like being someone who has like family in the military and seeing what happened to like friends and family post, like especially, the war in Iraq and like the way the American propaganda system works against other people. And I was like, oh, we're going to kind of dig into how the Federation sort of treated all of this information being fed to people, right? And then like the people who are on the ground versus the people who weren't. I also grew up watching MASH and it was one of my all-time favorites. And so to me, this felt like the MASH episode of Trek until the end, because MASH was deeply anti-war. And the big thing about MASH was it was good people dealing with horrific things, but never doing the horrific things. Does that make sense? And so I felt like we were on that edge, and then we crossed a weird line at the very end.
Have you seen the finale of MASH?
Yes.
Well, I mean, like there's the problem, right? Because like like that's the it. This episode ends like the finale of MASH.
I know it was. I hated it.
Yeah.
Because it felt like the show lost what the show was at the end. I think after anyway, I could dive into MASH. I think after seasons 4 or 5, it really kind of lost some of its what I
Pretty
enjoyed.
soon we're gonna have the MASH podcast with Mariah, Paul, and Clyde.
It's a substack of like
our bread podcast of hot dog pod.
Yeah.
Man, I can already see our summer's Patreon slate or our winter Patreon slate just stacking up.
But I did want to note though, I did think like Babs and Melissa, and I thought the acting was really great. And I thought they took, I could feel like, especially Babs with Mbenga's character, I could feel all of that panic and anger and the surgingness of it. And so I just thought he did a really incredible job. So that's my hot freak. That was long, but
I'll tag on to that and say, like, look, I'm a big Babs fan. Like, I feel like I need an audiobook that he narrates because I could just listen to him.
Oh my God, yes.
Forever. But the person who really surprised me, and I'll say it, I think I love their performance the most, was Melissa. I think Ortega's was clean in the fact that like I could really understand from beginning to end as a person who fought in this war, right? Not that long ago, in this battle where you lost a lot of people, where you're still dealing with all of that. And now the central figure in that, not like it's different when it's like it was somebody who was just there, another soldier, but you're talking about the key central figure to perpetrate these atrocities is there, and you're supposed to break bread and just be like, what's up? The fact that she tried and then couldn't and was like, no, like that felt real. And I was like, maybe I haven't been there, but I felt like I could be there through her. Like that felt clean to me. And I was really impressed. Like, again, the Ortega's character every week shows up and just kills it.
My problem with Ortega's is that so far, what we've learned about Ortega's is that she's funny and she's bigoted. And I'm like, okay, let's like maybe like see her in another like situation that she's not hating on some aliens for good reason, bad reasons. I don't know what happened to her, but like basically there's nothing else so far. Like every single interaction we've seen her have was that. I think we've seen her more into those old scientists where she's at the bar and you know she talks about that. But yeah, I'm like, give me something else.
Yeah, I'm definitely ready for more of her backstory, but I will say watching her performance reminded me a lot of seeing a lot of my friends who came back from the Iraq War and were just like, it takes so long for that, like everyone who looks like this is the enemy is no longer the enemy to like shift. And I mean, that's part of the war machine of it all. And I think it's an interesting place for them to say that like, is Starfleet doing the same thing? Like what was their like aftercare like when they came back from the Klingon War? And I think it's also, to me, what I found interesting, and I think what I was looking for, what would have especially helped at the end, was if there was someone who came in that was of Pike's stature who had also experienced the war. Because I think Pike, not having experienced that, couldn't be a proper captain to a lot of his crew in this particular episode, which is also interesting to watch. It's like, oh, if you weren't there, you didn't experience this, like you don't have a real way to connect, which I don't know. It's an interesting thing to put up as for conversation. Yeah.
Which is why Una is a badass first officer, because she comes in and goes like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Get this guy off. Like she's like, that's why she's number one.
Yeah.
And that's where we see again that Starfleet healthcare, mental healthcare is non-existent.
We're coming back to my origin story on Star Trek Pod, guys. Where is the therapist?
Like for real?
See, this is why we have counselors in TNG, because they realize, man, we are making mistakes.
Yeah, that's right.
We need some counselors.
It takes 120 years, but they'll get there.
They figure it out eventually.
Just calm down. Like everyone has to move at their pace.
I also like the fact that like Pike was like, "Hey, Mbenga, you want to go check on Erica too?" Like
he's like, you also should leave this room right now.
Yeah,
but that's crazy that he invited them. Like,
yeah, it's like weird too. Maybe there should have been more pressure put on. Like, maybe if I saw the admiral who's like, Pike, you cannot mess this up. Like, this is like a bit, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't feel like the stakes for Pike were really at the place where he needs to sacrifice the mental health of his crew.
Well, to be fair, like, Pike doesn't know, right? He might know with Erica. Erica is pretty like
open about her bigotry against Klingons.
Exactly, but Mbega and Chapel, they for all of it play good,
right?
They play okay, and and they're friends for a long time. Is this going to be okay? And Mbenga says, yes, I have it handled. Chapel says, yes, I have it handled. And so he does all the steps. He can't future cast so well that he goes, oh no, you're not going to be able to handle this. I'm not going to invite you. So and the moment that he sees that it's going south, he does what he needs to do. But but I don't think you can put it on Pike that he should have stopped it before it began.
I'm 1,000% putting it on Spike. Well, he's the captain, okay? He knows his crew. Yeah. They have files. He should have read all of them, especially the CMO, okay? And the thing is, even if somebody tells you, I can handle this, you're like, okay, maybe you can, but are we going to risk your mental health, giving you anxiety, having you in the same room than somebody who murdered a bunch of your friends? Even if you tell me you're handling it, this is my duty to not put you here. We'll do another setting. We'll do another setting.
Well, to push back though, would you be okay with someone making a decision for you because of their interpretation of what?
Yeah, if he's my boss, yeah, absolutely, because that's not my place. And that's an ambassador, and they're dealing with this, and they're telling me you're not coming to the dinner. I'm not gonna be. I want to go to the dinner. I'm not coming to the dinner.
You can see how that could be tricky, right? You can see how someone making a choice for you that is within what you're supposed to do or get. It's a gray area. I can't say that it's 100%.
It could have also been him giving. I don't know if he really gave them much of an option. I will say it was he says at the top, Starfleet has said they want him to especially interact with people who are vets of this war, right? And so he's essentially said, hey, you should come to this dinner. And I'm sure if they said, I don't want to, he would have respected that. But it was kind of given as we have these orders, we want you all to interact. I think it would be good for you to interact. But yeah, it's this is the person who was the general on the planet where all of this damage was done to you and your crew, and you saw all of his damage.
To Mariah's point, I have to say one of the things that I've had to really be careful with is, as a leader, is my voice, right? And the subtleties, because you can say as a boss, as an executive, you can go, hey, this is really important. It's almost like going, it's really important that we get this project done. This is a really important project. We've got to do everything that we can. So, probably going to mean working some late hours. We might work some weekends, and then going, hey, I know you got a bunch of stuff going on. So if you don't want to work the weekend with the rest of us, just let me know, and it's cool. That contradictory message, most people are going, no, it's okay. I can show up. I'll be there, even when they can't. And so I think that's the thing. The first message that Pike said was, this is super important. I need everybody to pay attention. Everybody's got to focus. Come on, we got to make this work. And I can wonder if he had some concern because, they did just blow up a deuterium space station refinery.
That's solid, Clyde.
That is solid. I'm in big trouble. I need you all to do me some big favors.
Right. So then to come back and be like, hey, Mbenga, you sure you want to go? He's already heard the message of how important this is, and he wants to be a team player.
Once again, this is not me 100% pushing back. This is just me saying, Pike's the boss. He's supposed to, and there's a difference between saying, hey, I need you to do this job. You need to tell me if you can do it or not. It's like that episode where Troy was trying to be an executive, a bridge crew person. And her test was basically, Jody, can you go in and die to save the Enterprise? and she couldn't
Always
do
gotta
it.
kill off the black man. I don't
It's
understand.
not my fault. I didn't write it. It's not me. It's not me. But it took Riker to like give her the hint accidentally that's what the problem was. She went through and kept on doing the engineering thing, and he goes, it's not in the manual. So like in this place, like, you know, for all of it, and we talk about this, like it's a space navy, you know, like I think Pike is like a really, really good captain for like the things that he needs to get done versus trying to meet the needs of his crew. Like, you know, and here I just think that like it's a real gray spot. Like, and to me, I put it on no one messed up. The only person who really, I could give it to Erica. You inviting Erica, you know, you messed up there. But in Benga and Chapel, I don't know.
The story needs them to be at that dinner. So what they're doing is like they're like jumping through hoops to make us agree that they should be at that dinner. But like I'm a team leader. Like I supervise a lot of people, and some people have, you know, PTSD from assault, from war, from many different things. And I'm like, I will not put any of these people in any close of a trigger when I need something very important being done. Oh, maybe like in general, because I don't want people to be triggered, right? So like the story is just like really want them to be at that dinner so the tension can go up.
Right. We have to
just like, okay, sure.
But you're speaking, like, as I said before, as a really healthy person.
Yeah, which we would like softly to be sometime, you know, something mental health.
Like they don't get counselors till like 100 years from now.
I do want to bring up Lynn's kind of comment here. Is this what will force Mbenga out of Starfleet before TOS? It's potential because, right, we don't know a ton about this character. And they've kind of given us even more breadcrumbs and questions that I have, because when he is talking about developing, I think it was like Protocol 12, right?
Protocol 12. Yeah, that's right.
Super soldier serum. But that Andorian comes up to him and is like, you were the ghost prior to becoming a doctor. Right. And so I'm just like, okay, are you going to give me like a sweet Mbenga? I was like an assassin and then I tried to change my ways and become a doctor, but then like you can't get rid of my assassinness. And to me, that would make the ending of this a little bit more palatable, because
but I think they're slow playing it, right?
That's what I'm hopeful for and like what I hope to see, because to me, that was such a big character sidestep from the person I've come to know as Mbenga, to see him, one, be the person who slaughtered all those Klingons, and then two, to essentially kill yet again.
Well, see, I could believe in the midst of war if he was a former assassin.
The cloak of war. The cloak of war.
Yes.
If you will.
Yes. So if you're talking about someone who became a doctor after they were a special forces, ghost recon, Navy SEAL type guy.
Ghost protocol.
Yeah, yes. I was like, I'm ready for Babs to be our next
Mission Impossible
Bond.
Yes.
Give him the Bond series.
Yes. So, but if you're telling me that that's where he was, and then he was like, look, I want to change my life, and I became a doctor, and then it was like, hey, we need you, and then he's triggered by seeing those people die, and he goes and does that, I could believe that. Fast forward a few years, the thing that I didn't understand was, you want to say it was an accident, you want to say he didn't start it, all of that stuff. He brought the knife into the room.
Yeah. He knew what he was doing.
He kept the knife. He kept it.
He had it with him. So to me, it's kind of like, if you shoot someone and you go, well, it was an accident, well, why did you have the loaded gun in the room?
Well,
in the med bay. In the med bay.
In a place where it did not belong.
To be fair, though, like, the guy walked in he was looking at his knife, and the guy walked in, right? It wasn't that he walked in and then he goes, oh, let me get my knife. That wasn't what happened.
But you don't think he was getting the knife out to go take him out, and he just happened to walk in?
I mean, you have like a knife that you literally committed war crime of it, okay, you carry it with you when you're the CMO of the enterprise, then you bring it into med bay in its little box while the guy that you were after is here, and you look at it in the med bay. That's a lot of steps.
I'm gonna say this. It's not a good look.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
No, it's not.
It's not a good look. But it's not the same. It's not that, like, it's like, not that we must go here, but, like, it's like when, like, Kylo Ren, like, becomes Kylo Ren in Star Wars. Like Luke makes the choice for him, and that's not that's the real problem.
You're probably making a great argument. I'm just stuck. Are we allowed to talk about Star Wars and Star Trek?
I'm not a Star Wars person, so I have no idea. Like, I watched these movies once, and I was mostly confused because I didn't understand what was going on. So
I thought it was gonna be put in the penalty box, but
give me a Star Trek analogy. Give me a Star Trek analogy. Come on, an Expanse. I'll take the Expanse.
The Expanse, love it. I love the Expanse.
That's good.
But in the end, like, I look like as far as this, like, you can really want to hurt someone, kill someone, blah blah blah. I imagine, not that I've done it recently, but it's a joke, everyone. It's a joke. It's a joke. Calm down. Calm down.
Oh my god, I want to come back. Back. This is fun.
Clyde's out. He's like,
I can't be a part of this though.
I mean, the only thing I think you've murdered recently, Paul, is peanut hampers, so that's okay.
Yeah,
I was waiting.
All power to
you didn't get yes.
Right. But but you're not a murderer until you take action. You can want to, and you could hate really. Like, I have friends who I go like, "Oh, you really hate this group," and I go, "There's no amount of undamaged that, like, healing that can be done," and that's a terrible thing to see. And so I look at M'Benga in this way. I go like, I can see, like, remember, the war has just been like under 5 years ago. It's not like 20, 30 years. Right. This is 5 years ago since this has happened.
Which is how Ortegas gets away with me still liking her with her xenophobia.
It's really fresh, like, and don't forget, the Federation was gonna lose.
Yeah.
Like this is really
right. Which is why, like, I didn't have, it was surprising to me when they did the reveal of M'Benga being the butcher, at the end of this, him talking about how, but then it was like, to me, we find out that the General Doc Ra, like, he was the one who ordered everyone to start killing civilians, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, to me, the death, him going to pursue the death of that guy, I could see that. It is interesting to me that he chose to, instead of outing this guy to seek justice, that then at the end, but then it does put it back on him, and that reputation's back on him. I can see, Paul, where you see, like, this complication and, like, this being like an interesting episode in that way. But
and to be fair, we don't entirely know that Chapel is lying entirely about who started the fight. Like, we hang on. Like, what happens is, like
they put it behind that screen.
Exactly. By choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I'm not saying that he didn't do it. I think he did it.
Right.
He did it.
But that's not the same as seeing someone do it.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, there is a space where, like, M'Benga, if he was innocent, he would be saying the exact same thing.
I think, to me, I wanted more of so when they're doing the, like, hand-to-hand combat between Doc Ra and M'Benga, to me, that was the best scene of the whole episode. Like, watching both that physical and mental kind of, like, fight between the two of them happening, and that tete-a-tete, to me, that was like, that's what I wanted to see happening, is this, like, that was the full representation of that struggle between these two characters and between these two thought places, right? Of like, can you be redeemed, but can you really be redeemed if you don't even live in the truth? And then can you change who you were going forward? Right.
And that's
it's
the
like
interesting question of the episode that like we've seen with the defector in TNG, right? With the Romulan defector. And you don't know if he's like really
Right.
defecting or not. And for me, that was such an interesting plot. I was like,
Mm.
I want to know if that dude is doing all this with an end game,
Right.
or if he really is helping the Federation. And nobody cares about that. Like, the episode is like, oh, that's not important. And I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
This is super important to the episode.
Yeah.
Because Mbenga, okay, so it was Ghost, Mission Impossible, James Bond, I don't know what.
Sure.
I'm already pissed about that, by the way, like, to start with, from episode 1, because Booker Bradshaw in TOS, like, that guy wanted to be a force for good, right? And having a black doctor that is here for peace and, like, is respected in his trade, it was super important. And then they bring back Mbenga, and instead of making him a positive character, they make him that, like, horrible killer with a dark
Sure.
past. And I'm like, dude, give me one black man that's not a murderer. Can I? I love Cisco, but, like, he did some shady shit.
Well,
Jordy,
to be fair, like, Cisco has killed more Romulans.
Yeah, that's
than-
shady shit. He's into shady shit, okay? But I'm like, a positive father figure, a positive guy who has a good relationship with his kid, his coworker, who's here to be a force for good, who's a doctor, he's loving the people around him. No, he has to have, like, the highest kill in, like, all, like, Black Ops Starfleet. And I'm like, get the fuck out. Sorry. I don't remember if you...
we curse from time to time. It's okay.
I'm getting worked up. So then, okay, it's a redemption. I'm here for a redemption arc. I'm absolutely here. He, like, saw the error of his way, became a doctor, took the Hippocratic oath, and then what happens? He just, like, relapse and just goes and murder Klingons with a dagger in the head for the greater good. I'm like, okay, I'll
give you the greater good.
I didn't want to see that, to be honest, first of all. And then I'm like, okay, still there. I'm, like, pissed, but I'm like, I'll go with you. Redemption. I want to see redemption, right? But then you have, like, that whole story arc where basically it doesn't even try to see if the ambassador is doing the greater good, because he went and killed a Klingon for the greater good. You remember that, right? For helping. And then that guy, like, Uhura tells us that he did a lot, right? A lot of good. And himself, Mbenga, is on a redemption journey, right? From his, like, before times, right? And he wants to be a doctor to, like, redeem for that. So why can't he fathom that guy, he's doing the same thing, and that the greater good that ambassador is doing right now is important, because that's what he literally did in the past. And nowhere it's said that the ambassador is lying. If it was, the ambassador is actually lying, is not a defector, is actually still, like, pulling the thing,
bad guy.
and then he murders him, I'd be still pissed at the murder, because, like, that dude took a freaking oath. Okay, it is a doctor, and, like, he just is cool. It's just like this. It's easy. And then he's been explained to Pike that some people cannot be forgiven, and that the punishment for them is death. And, like, I'm like, again, you swore an oath that doesn't say that. And so there's a lot of conflicting thing for me on, like, where they're pushing that character. If he was, like, a security officer, I'd be like, sure, why not? But like, his own story is such in parallel with the ambassador's story that I don't understand why we couldn't have an episode where there was an understanding, where there was growth, where there was redemption, where there was something positive. No, it's just, let's murder the guy, and then let's just, like, lie about it and explain to Pike, and no, some people should just die. And I'm like, damn, is your CMO? That's not cool at all.
I wanted to jump in because someone made an interesting point of, like, if this guy had lived, would the Klingons have become members of the Federation sooner? Right? Like, what are the grander
The Klingons
implications?
never been Federation members.
Right. But you know what I mean? Like the relationship between the Klingons and the Federation. I also wanted to ask, so in the beginning of the episode, there is the flashback to the start of the Klingon War and some Discovery pieces, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I really wish, I know there is so much backlash against the Discovery Klingons, but I really wish we had a mixture of Klingons in this episode to have bridged those two things, because I went to Neville Page's Comic-Con panel and he said the toe the line thing is we don't talk about the Klingons. And I was like, dang, Neville Page. But it's like, even if you had done them with, I feel like they were trying to with like some hair, but not all the hair with this general, but like
I heard somewhere that they said that like in order to make season 1 work, they go like, in war the Klingons shave off all their hair, and so that's right. How. So,
but then when Mbenga's stabbing all of those lieutenants and generals, they all have hair.
They had hair. Mm-hmm.
So I was like, so to me, those should have been.
I mean, the biggest question about Klingons is how Worf can like be stabbed through and through by a Vulcan and survive no worries, and that dude takes a small dagger in the shoulder and he's dead. I want to know.
Well, actually, like Klingon physiology does really well with prune juice.
Well, there's prune juice, but isn't their heart in a slightly different place? So perhaps Mbenga found like the right.
Oh, he knows how to. Yeah,
because he's a doctor.
Because he's both a doctor and an assassin.
That's it.
It makes him good at both. Like because he's good at one, he's good at the other.
Yeah.
Here's where I was struggling with this: is Doc Ra just didn't feel like any Klingon I've ever seen. Like, Worf is typically the most, even especially new Worf, right? Mm-hmm. Like Picard era Worf is the most pacifist, meditating, tranquil Klingon we've ever seen. This Klingon
is talking shit about other Klingons.
But to be fair,
he is. But it's just felt.
When he said it, I went, ooh.
Well, but to be fair, like, he turned his back on his culture and he ran away. He's a coward. He's like Duras in that way.
Mm-hmm. So the defector in TNG, again, the Roman defector. I don't remember his name, but.
Exactly. So, like, I had no problem with him being, like, you would have to be this way in order to live your life working on the other side.
Right.
I'm just saying that's my take of it.
It is interesting. It was almost like a really extreme code switch, right? Like he's going like, I have to appeal to the Federation people, so I'm going to sound exactly like the Federation people.
I the whole time I'm thinking, this guy's a double agent. Like the whole time I'm like, he's not. He is. The first thing he asked for is, "Can I get a crew? Can I get a tour of your ship?"
Yeah.
Yeah, the flagship. The whole time I'm thinking.
Interesting. So, because
but to me, that would have been a really interesting arc if you had 6 more episodes and you were going to really follow that out. Like that was going to be really interesting to me. And then you killed him in a weird way at the end, and I was like, now I'll never know.
So here's my when I watched this episode, the episode that I thought most of was In the Pale Moonlight in Deep Space Nine. Because this is where Sisko tricks the Romulans to join the Dominion War, and like at the end,
he can live with that.
And he can live with that, right, Giraffe? and so basically, all the Romulans that die in the Dominion War, Sisko's fault. Sisko and Garrick. I'm just saying, like that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. But why? But you accept that, and this is one of my top 10 episodes because like it goes like, oh. Because there's a price for utopia, like not you can't always play clean, and that's what the episode said. And I go like, oh, that's a very interesting thing to put into Trek because like before that, like it's not really done that way. Like the idea that like utopia has a price, and so in this one, I go like, is it going to be like that? And I go like, oh, they're actually going even more dark with this, which. In some ways, it feels less like Trek than what I want in Trek, which is why it's not my favorite episode. which I go like, oh, this feels less Trek to me and more of a darker sci-fi thing, thematically.
Very Battlestar Galactica.
That's exactly that's not a bad example. It's more. It seems more Galactica, where it's a survival thing, or at least more personal stakes. And so we're dealing with this person who's going and saying like, oh, I am the harbinger of death. Do I forgive? Can I forgive this person for killing all these Klingons and humans and all these people responsible for that person, even though I can see that they're doing good now? Even can he do that? And although it's not a question that I think is a Star Trek question to ask, I think it's a really interesting question from a story standpoint.
Right.
Like is forgiveness something that can be given? Can mere humans give forgiveness for atrocities? And you go, Clyde. I disagree with me a little bit.
I'm actually gonna agree with you. I think that would have been a really interesting story. And I think in old Trek, the entire episode would have centered around that point. Right. And I felt like they were teasing it a little bit, but we didn't get enough of, like, you didn't put me in a position to really understand his arc, his journey, his hero's journey from the dark side to the light side, that put me in a position where I believed or cared, right? The whole thing is he felt hollow to me, right? So if you had seen, it's one thing to tell me, right? But if you had shown me him on a planet building houses for children or something like that,
sure.
right? That's where they encountered him or something, like they had to pick him up, and because I feel like
that would have been the TNG intro. Yeah,
like TNG is they would have showed up at the planet. They would have we're waiting for. He's busy. Away team would have went down and he'd been like, I can't come right now. We're building this village, right? Like these people need houses, and they like the whole first 10 minutes would have been trying to get him to stop doing that and then come on this trip with them. That would have set the tone for me to go, this guy's serious, right?
I like him.
Yeah, I like him.
Like, are you rooting for him? Right.
Right.
But I'd also say, like, to your point, Clyde, to build all that, this is actually the second episode where we see Ninja and Benga, right? We saw episode 1. We saw episode 1, which I bumped on because I go like, where's this ninja bit coming from? Yeah. And now with this, I go, I accept episode 1 so much more.
Right.
But to be fair, like, if this episode were like the 5th of a 5 episode arc, it would be better. Like right now, it's really intense. For like, you have to trust the audience to make all these jumps to go with him to do these things. So like,
I'll tweak yours a little bit, Paul, and say if we got these flashbacks in episode 1, it would have made way more sense.
Even just a few of them, even just a few of them.
1000%. And I have to say that I'm like, at the end of this episode, I want to know more about Dakra than like about Mbenga. Like, I'm like, I want to know the story of that Klingon ambassador right now. And
how did he run?
Believed for him to be a traitor. Like, I wanted to see that. Like right now, it's like irrelevant to the plot. I'm like, that was the most interesting thing you had going. Why didn't you give me more about this? Especially post Klingon War, right?
Yeah. I thought GP brought up an interesting point that Ra in this episode seems not unlike some mega church minister. I've also been watching a lot of Righteous Gemstones, so this could be why I want to talk about this. Very much like he was attracted to power, whether it was Klingon or Federation, which is interesting to, if we are making some of these leaps, right, is that essentially he gives the order, kill everyone, sees all of his lieutenants and general getting taken out. He flees and is like, just kidding. I was trying to stop all of these people. Look at how powerful and wonderful I am. These are and I will say it took me, I had to rewatch like the last 20 minutes to fully understand the sequence of events, to kind of get from, he pretended that he did this thing of killing all these generals because they were doing the bad thing. And that's how he, came to power in Starfleet. But in fact, he was just a scaredy cat who ran away and ran to Starfleet and was like, just kidding, I'm a good person.
There's one thing I don't understand though. like, okay, so everybody has seen The Expanse?
I have not seen The Expanse, but
It's good.
I think
Okay,
it's
Read the
so
book.
small spoiler. So there's this character called the Butcher of Anderson Station, and he's a military, and as a military, he's sent to murder a bunch of workers who were striking, right? And he murders everybody, and then he has this redemption arc, and he flips to the other side, right?
Mhm.
And he's a butcher because he murdered a bunch of civilians, right?
Mhm.
Why is Mbenga calling himself the Butcher when he killed a bunch of Klingon warrior? Like Darkra for me is still the Butcher. He sent the order to kill all the colonists, all the families, and all the kids. So that's why I had to rewatch these 20 minutes because I was like, I don't understand. Why is he saying that he's the Butcher of Jagal? Like, did he murder civilians? And actually, no. So I still
No.
don't really get the sequence of events that make him call himself the Butcher.
As I understand it, like how the Klingons call him the Butcher because not Mbenga,
Dakra.
Dakra, because he killed fellow Klingons. You know, like on another level, the person, like, you know, we would call him the Butcher if we knew that he killed all these people. But Mbenga is just using that name. I'm the one who killed the Klingons. I'm the Butcher.
Oh, okay.
So like,
I was just like, wait, what? Yeah, it was just and the thing with this like Butcher thing also, I mean, it brings a lot of like true parallels in history, you know, like a lot of people have been called like the Butcher, and I'm just like, I don't get why they're throwing that in the middle here. I don't.
Well, to me, there was a lot of like in Doc Ra's kind of storyline, it paralleled a lot of like, I watch a lot of the documentaries about like the trials of like the generals during World War II, right? And like what happened to like Nazi generals at that time who are like, we're following orders. And like, there's a lot of people who were called the Butcher of whatever horrific site they were at. And to your point, Giraffe. And so I think there were that things of like, and that was something, you know, when a lot of those people were put on trial is like, is there justice within this system for something this big and horrific? Is like the big question that was posed in a lot of these documentaries. And to I think a lot of your points, Paul, is like one of the big questions they're trying to pose here in this episode is there actually justice when there is this level of injustice? And is Mbenga just deciding that he doesn't believe that this justice can actually occur?
Which makes him a vigilante, right?
Right, very vigilant.
Well, that's what the captain's saying, right? At the end, he goes like you can't do that. You know, we have tribunals for that, and blah blah blah. Like it's tough, right? Like, you know, like I'm a person who goes and says like you have to respect the rule of law because like without that, you know, like you have vigilance, you have anarchy. Yeah. You know, like at the same time, like, you know. Like here is this thing where I like there was this meme where I saw this dude talking and this kid like maybe about 18 years old or whatever like cracks an egg on the back of his head, and then the guy turns around, he looks at him and then punches the kid. Now I'm not saying you punch a kid for cracking an egg on your face, but I go like I do understand the impulse for like that kind of like you want that quick sense of like you have the ability to create balance, and I'm going to do that now. And I'm going to be the arbiter of that. And I could definitely see like, you know, here Mbenga is really going like, get off the ship, go away. You're not safe here. I can't trust myself around you. And the guy just keeps on pushing. You know, like, and you know, I can see how, and once again, it's 5 years out from like the war, and it's fresh. He's dealing with a lot of PTSD that his Black Ops stuff it's not in his file. Pike doesn't know this stuff. Like, you know, he's not going to know that. Like, he's
fair. I didn't think about that. You're right. Yeah, absolutely.
He's just like, oh, you were a medical officer, saw a bunch of horrific things. I don't know.
Wait. To counterpoint this, in like the episode where they all lost their memory and we don't get to know anything about Zach, he knows he's a very good fighter because he asks him to be on the mission just
That's
Yeah.
true.
or
He does know he's
security and not as a doctor. So
That's true. That's true.
But like, like
Nice, Giraffe.
just because someone can fight doesn't mean that they're ninja.
I mean, so the next thing I want to pose is I am ready for this Section 31 movie where Mbenga is, and that's why we don't get him in TOS. Moves over, and then we can finally
use them.
Yeah, well, also because I want to see Babs and Michelle Yeoh do stunt work together because it will be impeccable.
it's going to be incredible.
Yeah, no, I was watching, as I was watching the fight, like I was going like, oh, you can tell that Babs is really handy.
Mm-hmm.
But they're cutting for the other guy because the other guy isn't as handy. Like, you could like he's Babs is in like Dune, right? And he gets shanked by like Timothée Chalamet.
He has a black belt in like jujitsu or something like that.
So
right?
He's for real. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can see that he understands the movement in his body, and like and that he oils himself up all the time. Apparently,
he looked great. That shower scene was like, I feel you emotionally and physically when he said "sonic shower to full blast, baby."
Everybody's too good looking on that cast. It's not possible.
I mean, literally, I was watching that and I was just like, I'm gonna do some push-ups, lift some weights, because feeling bad about myself right there.
Someone in the chat maybe has my favorite prediction I've seen for episode 10.
That's what I told you. Didn't I tell you that?
No, you haven't told me this.
I've been about this for like 4 days.
Oh my gosh. The med bay is incubating a Gorn. Is that why it's glitching?
I have slightly different theory.
How would that happen?
I have a slightly different theory. So at the beginning, he says that the biobeds have been problematic since the Gorn attack, right?
Yeah.
And I think that maybe that's how the Gorn managed to put the eggs into people. Every time they get into the biobeds and they get like some procedure done, it like, or it makes them ready to be,
assimilated
baby machines. Like it changes something in them that makes them not reject the eggs or something like that. Or last theory, it makes the biobed incapable of seeing that they've been infected by the Gorn.
By Gorn? Oh, that's good. That's good. Like,
that's my theories going on.
Like for episode 10, my hope is that there's a hand-to-hand fight between Pike and a Gorn. Just like to pair. I was looking up like how old Aston is, and he's 50, and I go like I'm getting close to that age. I'm nowhere near like running a starship. I'm not captain of a starship, and I just feel I feel like I'm not living to my full potential.
You can Anson out your own way.
That's right.
If you're Pike, and when you die, and it's not by Gorn attack, would that make you superhero? Would that make you a superhero?
This is the thing though. Like this is the problem with like the determinism of time in Star Trek for Pike. Like he can do anything, right? Like he can take his, he's undeadable if he really believes that. Mm-hmm. So it's it's too much of a superpower to know exactly when you die. Like not just like a vision of, but like know the exact day, time, who died with you. Like
well, he's not dying. First of all, he's not dying.
Yes. Boop, boop, boop. Yes.
He's not dying.
Beep beep chair.
That's right. So when he goes beep beep, like he knows when that is, and that's 10 years out. He could do anything. He could go down to a Klingon planet and just kill everyone with one toothpick. And
but that doesn't stop the Klingons from putting him in prison and torturing the shit out of him for like 5 years or so. Like, do you want this?
You make a fair point. You make a fair point. He could have. I should not be given like prophecy powers. That is not something I should be given. You've proven that to me. Well done.
Paul, you want him in episode 7 just to walk over to the Orion and just smack him in the face.
That's right. Yeah. It's all this stuff. Although I would really call back to 07. I really want to see live action Tendi.
I would love to see live action Tendi.
Someone earlier said, kind of call back, they were like, I really wish that they had Noelle Wells play live action Tendy's grandmother
Oh, that would have been
on the
cute.
ship. That would have been amazing, and we didn't see it.
Yeah, I know. I thought maybe when they were staring through the portal, maybe they would have had the live action versions of them just doing like
a wave.
Yeah.
Good.
just like a short cameo. But I was like, I realized that's more money that they probably didn't want to spend on this episode.
Sure.
But anything else y'all want to talk about in these two action-packed episodes?
Yes, I loved Chapel in that episode. Like, finally, we didn't speak about her, but like after 2 full seasons almost of her doing nothing,
we see her not attached to a man for romantic interest.
We see her do her job and be incredible at it and be caring and being smart and being fearless and being not here to be arm candy for Spock or like emotional support nurse for Spock. And I was so happy to see her here and like her giving her a little bit of backstory also and how she deals with all this. And now it makes me even more mad that we didn't see her do more badass stuff on the Enterprise when we know how incredible she is. Like, come on.
I was thinking about how it would have been interesting if Chapel had taken the serum and if Chapel was the butcher.
I mean, I would not have been happy with that either.
I know, but what a backstory that would give Chapel, right?
You can see why she picks like temporary relationships then.
Yeah, true.
I'm disappointed that we don't have 18 episodes of this show. Like I'm
too much money.
I feel like I know, but it's just, especially if you're gonna do it like this. Right? Like, listen, the crossover episode was great, right? But from a story standpoint, crossover episode didn't really move the story. And then next week we've got a musical. Like, those are all cool ideas, but in an 18 episode, a 20 episode format, then now I'm looking at those, I'm like, I love them. And now you can tell me more about this Klingon war. You can tell me more about like, we still haven't gotten an Ortega's backstory. The Gorn thing can go on for 4 episodes or 5 episodes. There's a lot you can do if you're giving me 18. I got 2 left. Like I'm struggling here. I said the same thing I said, I think, what was it with Discovery? Don't do that thing where you try and wrap up the whole thing and tie up all the arcs in like an episode and a half. Like, please don't do that.
I mean, I'm sure we might get a slight,
right?
We might get a slight cliffhanger is a potential since I think they thought they were going to get season 3 to us a lot sooner, and now we have the strike, which we fully support. And Paramount, you should be paying your people. AI cannot write these episodes. It would have been even worse as far as tropes go. I'm just saying, like, no robot is going to get creative. So yeah, Paramount, pay your writers and your actors. I wanted to just quickly mention, so Clint Howard is in this episode. I don't know if y'all recognize him.
Buck Martinez.
Yes. Martinez, who first appeared at 6 years old in TOS, and he has since been in Deep Space Nine, TNG.
In the Corbomite maneuver, right?
Yes. Tiny child.
And I want to add, one of my favorite cameo of Clint Howard is in French, where he plays Emmanuel Grayson, who's convinced that he has contact with the Vulcan, and Grayson is Amanda Grayson. So it's like a Star Trek thing, and he does like the Vulcan salute, and it's an amazing episode. He's like several times in French. If you go rewatch that, it's a very good show.
I do like French.
Yeah.
Anything else, y'all?
I know, but I think we've relegated everyone for quite a long time.
I know, it's almost 2 hours long, y'all. We appreciate you still listening.
One last thing: the guy that they say, or that M'Benga saved in Chapel, who she actually manually kept his heart. I was so hoping that was they never told us his name.
Inman, Ensign Inman.
Inman. I was hoping that we were gonna get something that told us that he was someone, like
Same.
grandfather or something for someone. I was just like, come on, throw us a bone. And it didn't. And I was a little disappointed.
For us as Cisco, like there was like jambalaya and racconcino, and I was like, come on, give me something. Give me something.
I was hoping that maybe this was like Jordy's great grandfather who,
that would have been good.
who had said, "Hey, I was a soldier and I don't ever want to be a soldier," and that's how the LaForges became engineers or something. Like, give me something. That's what I was hoping for. Something along those lines.
We can write that canon. That can exist in our heads. All up there. Okay, y'all. We've kept you for so long. Thank you for going along this ride with us. It's been a crazy time. Comic-Con was super fun. We'll get some more bonus content for y'all around that too. Girafe, I think you had a coupon code for people, especially for making it all the way to the end here.
Yeah. Okay. So if you like that shirt that I'm wearing, we have a partnership with Heroes and Villain. I don't know if you know the brand, but they have a lot of cool sci-fi nerd things. And if you use the coupon Strange, you can have 20% off. So go have fun.
Add Astra per Aspera.
It's a good t-shirt. I saw some of the other t-shirts. I would definitely wear almost all of them. So I'm excited to check that out. We will be back next week to talk about the musical. Get ready, y'all. It's going to be...
And also, like, stay tuned for more hot dog and...
hot dog, bread chat.
A hot dog chat, bread chat. That's right.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
We enjoy it.
You're always welcome, Girafe.
Always welcome, my Trek work wife. You're always welcome.
Now the episode is like 2 hours because, I talk too much. I know that.
It is all good. Okay, y'all. We will see you next time. Follow us at Star Trek Pod on Twitter. Thank you, Karen, for helping us there. You can rate and review on Apple Podcasts. That'd be really great if you did that. Visit StarTrekPod.co for links. Also, so you can join us over on Patreon. We appreciate you all so much. Live long and prosper. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.